everyone, it's Julia. I have been making journals this week and I thought I would share with you what I've come up with. This is a drop cloth, a cotton canvas drop cloth, and it is one of my favorite fabrics to work with. It frays really well, but yet has some substance to it, has some slubs in it, and it's just kind of neat. I am using a quilt batting, or this is a warm and natural batting that I am placing behind the cover. And each of these journals also has a lining or an inside fabric, which is also the cotton canvas. And I am putting a mid-weight fusible interfacing on the lining. I'm going to be collaging the fronts of these journals, and these are this is my selection of what I'd like to work with. First of all, the background fabrics, and I love words, and one of these is like a postcard and an overall print. And then I usually grab some brights, some embellishments, which are trims and laces, sometimes buttons, just anything I might have in my sewing room. I like using little pieces of fabrics that I can use as an applique. Love this little piece with little faces on it. And then I thought I would do a nature journal. So I have one that says earth and another bird there. And then I like to use some of my pieces of my fabric collages. And I'll link the video on this where I make these. But this is just fabric swatches or just little scraps and pieces of trim. And they just have some interesting looks to them. So I like to incorporate those in my collages. I'm going to be making 3 of these here, and I'm just going to show you some of my thought process. So much of these is absolutely trial and error, and I lay things down and I take things off, and until I figure out what I like the best. I am using my Fixon pens by Pilot to write the words. Each one of these journal covers is going to have some words on it. Now I love using these pens because they disappear once it's ironed, but I do not use these pens on dark fabrics. I only use them on the light fabrics. They're not made for fabric, but they're just wonderful for this type of thing, because I can write my words on there. If I don't like how it's written, I can just take the iron and take it off. One of the things I find when I'm writing is I go uphill or downhill, and so having it written out really helps once I'm at the sewing machine, because all this is going to be free motioned on. Again, just doing my fiddling around. I like adding a little piece to the back of the journal as well. And this one says free spirit. And then I realized I just didn't have that centered correctly, so with my iron that was just easily removed, and I'm just moving it over a little bit here. I ended up making 6 of these, and you'll see all of them at the end. I just do the 3 here, but just again love this little piece of fabric. I've had it in my stash forever, but it has these little faces on them. And the faces are quite delicate, and so I thought when I was looking at this, thought I needed to add a little bit of lace, and so I found some vintage motif lace, which you'll see. These buttons too are really fun. They're a painted button, craft button, and again, all my supplies will be listed down below. These are very inexpensive buttons, and they just really add a little pop to any design. And here's that little lace motif. I found this at the thrift store, a whole roll of these lace motifs. What a find that was. I've been hoarding them. But I'm been better. I'm using them up a little bit by little bit. And on this one, I believe I wrote the word grace. I have my free motion foot on. My feed dogs are dropped. My stitch length is set to 0, and I'm going to be doing all the movement on this. First of all, I'm going to be using a multicolored thread for the top and a bobbin thread in white. And then I'm going to be switching to black, just a all-purpose thread for the top, and then a black bobbin thread. I like using bobbin thread. It doesn't leave as much lint in my bobbin case, and it seems like the stitches just are just more smooth. And so I'm starting off here. I usually do a little jig and then clip my thread just to do a little kind of a back stitch there, just to make sure that it's secure. And then I'm going to be just drawing with my thread. Now I have the multicolored thread on here now, and I'm just doing a meander zigzag, catching everything in. What I love about free motion is you can draw with your thread with it, and later on you'll see that when I switch to the black. It's almost like you can doodle and just add fun marks. I'm in real time right now, and I'm soon going to be switching to a faster speed because it's quite repetitive. The tricky part is just to keep everything underneath that presser foot so things don't get caught. So once in a while I will have to stop and lift that presser foot up just to push everything underneath. And then getting that piece of trim in there. I switched to the black thread now, and you will see what I mean by adding some fun marks. This is where you can just get creative and just doing a little doodle on the edges there. I'm outlining the pieces of fabric with this black thread, and then also just doing a fun little mark on the sides. And I decided to add a little zig on this piece of fabric that has these design on it anyway, and I just thought it would add a little bit of interest. And now on to the words. And again, I'll do a little zig there and then clip my thread. And this is going to be in real time at the beginning here, so you can see my speed when I'm doing my letters. And I'm not concerned if I get off of my writing, because I can always just take my iron and remove that pen mark. And then dotting my I's. I did add one of those fun buttons to the front of this as well. And now it's on to constructing this thing, and it's the easiest construction for this journal. I am putting the wrong sides together, so I have the lining there, and that lining has that interfacing on it. And then I am just going to stitch all the way around this. I'm going to do some pinning first just to keep everything in place. And so the raw edges on this are going to be shown. I stitch going a 1/2 inch from the edge, so I'll have plenty of fraying action on both layers. Once that is sewn, I'm on to punching my holes, and I'm using my crocodile here to punch holes for my grommets. I do like using a 3/16 inch grommet. It just gives me a little bit more room in the inside for the hole. And this using a setter and my hammer to get those in place. So I have a grommet on both ends here. And I'm not going through my stitching. I have my grommet set inside my stitching line. I'm going to be using this more for selling these more for an art journal. And so I'm using more artist type papers. I'm using multimedia paper, craft paper. I love this lightweight Tomoe River paper. It's great for watercoloring and just has some fun techniques. And then a couple pages of copy paper. There will be 2 signatures in each of these little booklets. The cover of each of the signatures is going to be this pattern paper. It's just like a cardstock or scrapbook paper. And I love using the cardstock in my journal, my art journals as well, because there's so many fun things that you can do with that as well. You want to make sure that your pages are within those grommets. You don't want them to extend beyond the grommets. And so I'm just cutting everything down to size here and just making my little signatures. Now you can use different ways to cut your papers down. I just like using one of these snap blades, a metal ruler on my cutting mat. It just works the best for me. But if you have any, there's so many different kind of cutters that you can use. I'm using my archival ink now and a stencil. And I'm just adding a little bit to the front, and then I'll be adding the same stencil to some of my pages. And this just ties the pages to the front. It's probably a step that you don't need to do, but I just kind of add some interest on some of these blank pages, and then also brings that same color and that same look to the inside. I do like using the archival ink for fabric because it is waterproof. Not that a journal is washable anyway, but if it's laying on a table and there's something that spills, it's not going to, stain or rub off at all. This is the easiest kind of journal and the easiest binding. I am just taking cording through the top grommet, the bottom thread through cord through the bottom garment, and taking that top thread back through that bottom grommet and just tying a knot. And notice how long my string is. I am going to be adding charms to this. So once again, through the top grommet, the bottom one through the bottom grommet, and then that top thread I put back through that bottom grommet, and then tie the 2 strings together in the bottom. Now this is a loose binding. But what I love about this for an art journal is you can take those pages out to work on them, or you add new pages as you fill it up. I have a little fabric bead that I'm stringing, and then I'm going to string on some of these wooden beads. It's hard to get that cord through there, so I have just a piece of wire that I have folded in half to string these beads on. So that's a little hint if you're having trouble stringing some heavier cording through beads. Just use a piece of wire. And then I have a little key there too that I'm going to add to my other set of strings. And this is what my little dangle looks like in my completed journal. And here's what the other covers. I haven't finished these, and the grommets aren't in, but I thought I would show you what they turned out, how they turned out. Love this little Grace one. This one says follow your passion, and I just stamped that on using my archival ink. Inspire. and one that says create. I hope you enjoyed this journal or these journals. This is an easy, quick project. And here again is the final one. Have a great week, everybody. I hope you have a chance to create. Bye for now.